This episode of Brains on Games is about a party game that's not about guessing what you're doing, but about guessing how you're doing it. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode we're going to talk about a party game because, well, this is the first video of 2022, and over the holidays, we managed to get cousins together, so we were able to try games that have a bit of a higher play count. So over the next few weeks, you'll see some games that are for a larger number of players than the 2 or 3 people that normally I have a chance to play with. But before the Christmas holidays, I received in the mail from the designers a copy of Somethingly. Now, this is a game that is for 3 or more players. It is kind of a party game. You want to have a big group for this one. It works with kids age 12 and older. You can play a game, and well, a game could last only 15 minutes, but it can go as long as you want. It just depends on how many rounds you want to play. Let's take a closer look at Somethingly. This is a party game, so there's no real strategy here. It's super light in terms of its complexity. It's not one that you really have to sit down and think about very much. It's a performing and guessing game, as you'll see when we open up the box and get more into it. You can play it competitively. That's not the way we did it. We just sort of made it as a fun guessing game, and we weren't trying to determine points or see who wins. But you could play it in teams against one another. You could play individually and try and earn the most points that way, either by performing in a way that people can guess or by guessing most of the Somethingly clues on the cards. Here we've got the box for Somethingly, and once again we've got a box that closes completely after you've dug into it. Inside the box are the rules, and there are 3 different ways of playing the game. And I will be honest with you, we didn't really use the rules very much because we were playing in a very non-competitive way. So you've got the individual competitive rules, you've got the team play rules, and some rules that are a little bit more inclusive where you could play by asking one person, the guesser, to leave the room while everybody else sees what the clue is and figures out how they're going to act that out so that the guesser can try and guess what the Somethingly is. Inside the box, you've got a die that you can roll if you want to do it that way to determine the difficulty level of the clue that you're going to be guessing. And then you've got 4 decks of cards. I had to think about it because there's 3 difficulty levels in terms of the Somethingly cards, and there's a big pile of these do this cards, and that's what you're going to be acting out. Tucked away in the very bottom of the box, the sand timer. That's a 1-minute timer so that if you are playing competitively, you can have one player who's trying to, or one team who's trying to guess as many Somethingly's as possible within this 1-minute time limit. As I said, there are multiple ways of playing and winning this game. You can play in teams where you try to guess as many as you can in a minute. If you're playing competitively, then one player is acting out the Somethingly card and the do this card, and other players are trying to guess. If a player guesses correctly, they get the Somethingly card, which has a number of points on the bottom. The purple ones are 1 point, and I will be honest with you, the purple ones are the only ones that we used when we played this game. If no one is able to guess from your performance, you're going to keep the do this card, and you're going to lose that point. I'm going to show you what all these cards say. You've got cards of differing levels of complexity. There's the easy 1-point ones, and then there's 2 points, and the pink cards are worth 3 points if you can guess them. But the do this cards are the action that you're acting out. So whether you're playing individually and trying to guess the most and perform the best, or you're playing in teams and trying to get the most in a minute, or you're having one person leave the room and then come back in to be the guesser, you're always going to be playing these do this cards, and everyone knows what the do this is. It's not like charades where you're guessing the action, you're guessing how they're doing the action. It's the Somethingly cards that are important here. So you might have to, for example, say something nice about everyone in the room, but everyone knows that's what you're doing. Describe each person's hairstyle. Mime putting on a necktie, so sometimes you do have to be silent. Pretend to win a long distance race. So you're allowed to speak and act on some of these do this cards. Sometimes you just have to mime it and be quiet about it. One of the cards is brushing your teeth. But the important thing, like I said, is how are you doing it? The most difficult cards, these are all adverbs, so they're describing the action that you're doing. Somethingly, they all have the ly at the end of them. So you might be winning a long distance race frenetically. Now, how is anyone going to guess that word? That's a pretty good vocabulary word. Intelligently. I'm not sure how you would win a race that way, but you might be able to tie a tie in a way that looks intelligently. Loftily is another one of the most difficult words. The medium level of difficulty has words like woefully, meekly. Could you meekly win a long distance race? Could you do that efficiently brushing your teeth, or argumentatively? How are you going to compliment someone in an argumentative way? So you may have to think about those things, especially for the most difficult ones. But like I said, we were playing with quite an age range, and we weren't trying to make this a complicated vocabulary exercise. So we stuck with the easiest level of difficulty, the 1-point cards with the purple backs. You could do those things eagerly, maybe, or silently. How are you going to compliment someone silently? So that's an interesting combination. Or you could do it majestically. So those are still hard words to guess. The difficulty level, though, it starts pretty tricky, and it definitely amps up to quite challenging words. You almost need to sort of have the players skim through these cards before they even start the game so that they have an idea of what words you're going to be talking about as you're playing. So you're not guessing what they're doing, you're guessing how they're doing it. Are they doing it meekly or majestically or argumentatively? Everyone knows what that green card says. In that individual competition game, you're going to act that out. Whoever guesses is going to get to keep the somethingly card that has that point value on the back. We were only playing with 1-point cards, remember? But if nobody guesses it, if you're a very poor performer, then you keep the do this card, and that says -1 point. So if you're a bad performer, you're going to be losing points. So you have to be a really good guesser to make up those points. So in terms of mechanisms, because that's the way we've been talking about these games, really what are you doing? You're acting and performing, or you're guessing from those clues. And what I think is interesting about this game is that it's different from charades. Yes, it is a vocabulary builder. I think a better vocabulary builder than charades, because you really have to think about how you're doing these things. You're not asking about how many syllables are in the word or what does it sound like, anything like that. You're guessing based on those nonverbals. So there is a huge vocabulary component here. Majestically, what does that mean, and how would you perform that in a way that other people could guess? You might have, and we did have sometimes where an adult had to help one of the kids, or they might have had to Google one of the words to get an idea of how are they going to act that somethingly card out. So it was kind of a challenge in that way, but it gets them thinking about those adverbs. And I think in terms of that vocabulary skill, what a great skill for a drama class or a creative writing class. I think that something like that is perfect for those kinds of teaching moments, but you are learning those words that are not focused on what are you doing, but on how are you doing it. Not only are you working on those vocabulary skills and developing that understanding of those complex adverbs, but you're also working on nonverbal communication. For the performer, they're trying to get that message across through tone of voice or body language. For the guessers, they're trying to interpret those messages. So you've got both the verbal communication, the vocabulary, and the nonverbal communication as well that are all blended together into this game. Final thoughts about somethingly. Well, first I would say, like most of these performing type games, this is a game that's super fun and silly and crazy with the right crowd. You have to have people who enjoy performing, who are brave about performing, and who aren't too shy about getting up in front of an audience. In our group, it worked really well to have some people who like performing and the rest of the people guessing. That's one of the reasons why we weren't competitive about it, because not everybody got a turn to do the performing part. We didn't want to put people on the spot at a party if they don't want to be on the spot. That's part of what party games are all about. It's a game where the vocabulary can become quite complicated. We only used the purple deck, and even some of those words were a bit challenging for some of the younger players. The more advanced words are far more so than that. You might need to flip through those cards and make sure everyone understands them and make sure people are seeing what kinds of words they might be guessing when they're playing a game of somethingly. So you've got that party element, that performing and acting element that some crowds would really, really enjoy. Not all of our players wanted to do that part. The vocabulary guessing everyone was okay about, but some of the vocabulary is pretty complicated, like I said, so that can make things challenging. Luckily, it is a game where you can adjust the difficulty, and it's more than simple to pull out some of those cards if you think that they're too unusual or words that no one else is going to understand. Thanks once again to the folks over at Somethingly for sending this game my way. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment section below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. The previous ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.